Hi, I'm Amy Lakin, and welcome to U.S. Multi-Ethnic Literature. This video gives a brief overview of the literary canon and the major periods of American literature. What is the literary canon? A literary canon is a selected list of works that are considered ideal or the best of the best. These works are represented in academic anthologies, and they set the criterion for which other works are judged. So, who decides what works are included in the canon? Why do literary canons consist mainly of white male writers? Does the perception of the literary canon change when women and people of color are added? The next section reviews the major periods of American literature and the authors who are typically included in the canon. So note, in those slides, people of color will be highlighted in yellow. The first period of American literature is called Rationalism or Enlightenment, and it was from the mid-1700s to the early 1800s. Typical characteristics of American rationalism or Enlightenment are: literature did not dominate this period. Writers typically were politicians, philosophers, and scientists writing articles and pamphlets and giving speeches. In response to the religious fervor of the Puritans, writers were concerned with discovering truth through reason and creating a national identity outside of Europe. A belief in God still existed, but the rationalists believed man could succeed by his own efforts. American Enlightenment writers often included in the canon are Thomas Paine, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. The next period is the Romantic literary period, which was from the early 1800s to the Civil War, which is 1865. Characteristics of Romantic literature include: Romantic writers valued originality and imagination over reason and logic. Their works emphasized psychology, unusual or eccentric behavior, the supernatural, and the mystery of evil. Characters are not necessarily realistic. Some are psychological archetypes, like a vampire, Satan, or a Christ figure. Characters may be solitary and isolated. Settings are often mysterious and medieval. Romantic literature often stipulates that nature reveals truth. Romantic American writers typically included in the canon are Washington Irving, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, James Fenimore Cooper, Walt Whitman, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Herman Melville, Emily Dickinson, and Harriet Beecher Stowe. Notice that only 2 of those writers are female, and all of them are white. The next period is the Realistic literary period, which covers the period from right after the Civil War to the beginning of World War I. Characteristics of realistic literature are: realistic writers used realistic settings, often with a scientific attention to detail. They created everyday, common, and seemingly uninteresting characters. They used realistic dialogue and regional dialects. Action takes place in the present time of the writer, not in the past or the future. Narrators often present characters in ordinary situations objectively without sentiment. The American realist writers typically included in the canon are Stephen Crane, Theodore Dreiser, Mark Twain, Henry James, Jack London, Bret Harte, Rebecca Harding Davis, Sarah Orne Jewett, Edith Wharton, and W.E.B. Du Bois. Here we have at least one non-white writer. Modern literary period covered the period between the 2 world wars. Characteristics of modern literature include: modernism refers to works that represent the breakdown of traditional society under the pressures of modern society. Writers were more experimental with their subjects and plot lines. Authors often wrote fragmented stories, and readers had to dig the structure out. modern writers favored suggestion instead of obvious plot lines. Modern American writers typically included in the canon are Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Sherwood Anderson, John Steinbeck, William Faulkner, Robert Frost, Edgar Lee Masters, Susan Glaspell, Carl Sandburg, T.S. Eliot, Willa Cather, Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, and Richard Wright. Here we have a few more women and a few more non-white writers. Postmodern or contemporary American literature occurs after World War II. And the characteristics are: postmodern writers question if language can truly represent reality or if art can create meaning. Postmodern writers do not believe that literature can explain or plot life. Postmodern fiction is sometimes crude, absurd, and illogical. Metafiction is literally fiction about writing fiction. The writer reminds the reader that he or she is reading something that is not real. Non-realistic drama includes plays that do not pretend to be real life. The play is presented artistically with unrealistic elements, like unrealistic lighting, special effects, music, etc. Postmodern American writers typically included in the canon, well, there's just too many to list, but here's a highlight. Kurt Vonnegut, Joseph Heller, William S. Burroughs, Raymond Carver, John Fowles, Flannery O'Connor, Joyce Carol Oates, J.D. Salinger, Ralph Ellison, Maya Angelou, Amy Tan, Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, Sandra Cisneros, and Sherman Alexie. Finally, we're getting a much more diverse list of writers, including men and women, gay and straight, and many people of color. Thanks, and I'll see you online.